Hello everyone. In this lesson, let's set things up so that you can click on an individual critter to go to a page for just that particular critter. Here's how I would set that up. So let's write a new prompt and say, please create a new, and I'm just going to make this file name up, but you could call it anything. Let's say single-critter.php file in the root of my project. Have it use the same reusable head.php, header.php, and footer.php in the lib folder that index and create critter use. This new single critter.php page will load one critter from the critters table based on an incoming URL parameter. The incoming URL parameter will be ID and its value will be a number. Sanitize that incoming URL parameter and use it to look up the appropriate critter based on ID in our critters table. In this new page, below the header, show the critter, including their image, comma, remember, you can find their image in the image column in the critters row, and all images live in the critter images folder. Finally, in index.php, where we have a list of all users' critters, have each image be a link that links to single critter.php and includes that critter's ID as the ID URL parameter. Okay, that's a long prompt. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what the agent can give us. It looks like my agent finished, so if I refresh the home page, and let me click on the teddy bear. Wow, that's better than I expected. So I didn't even tell it to have the text description, but notice the URL, single critter, and then it says ID3 for the teddy bear. I can click back on this link to go to the home page. I can click on the monkey, and there we see the fuzzy monkey builds blocks in the backyard. And you can click our app to go back to the home page. So we're already up and running. Now we can navigate. This is great. Now let's add on this single critter page, let's add buttons that let you favorite or archive the current critter. In terms of how to do that, I'm always thinking about our database. So anytime you're wondering how I'm deciding what we should do first, my mind always treats the database as the single source of truth, or as the home base for thinking or conceptualizing features about our app. In other words, back in our critters table, if I refresh, right, here are all of our, I only have two critters at the moment, the monkey and the teddy bear. But my mind immediately says, hey, why don't we just add a column to the critters table? We can have one column called is favorite, and we can have another column called is archived, and then it can just be a value of true or false. Or in database terms, you usually have a 0 to mean false or a 1 to mean true. So that's where I would start, is the database. So let's see. You'll notice VS Code has a context feature here. So whichever file you have open, like if I open up create critter, it lists that as the context. So you probably, throughout the course I've been saying like in create critter, you probably don't need to do that. But again, I always err on the side of giving the agent as much context as possible. But for this prompt, I would say in create critter.php, in the code that creates the critters table, if it doesn't exist, modify it to include columns of is favorite and is archived. Both of these columns will store values of 0 or 1 for true or false. Also, give me copy and pastable PHP code that I can run manually to alter my existing critters table. So remember, in earlier lessons, I promised we would learn how to modify a table without just having to delete it. Because in this case, now I don't want to lose these two images, the monkey and the teddy bear. So I just want to add on new columns without having to start completely fresh. So that's what this last part of the prompt is going to do for us. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. Looks like my agent finished. So this looks good for the changes in create critter, but this code is only going to run if the critters table doesn't already exist, like if you were starting from scratch. In our case, in order to actually add those columns to the database, since we don't want to delete that table, if I scroll up, the agent, yes, it should give you a bit of code. And so I'm just going to copy this PHP code into my clipboard. When you hover over it, there should be different options, and this option should copy it into your clipboard. Now, how do we actually execute the code that's in our clipboard? There's a lot of different ways. Probably the quickest and dirtiest way of doing it would just be to go into your index.php. And you wouldn't do this in a live production app, but because we're on our private sandbox computer and no one else is visiting the website other than us, maybe just up at the very top here in index.php, make sure you're below the opening PHP tag. But I would just press enter a few times, paste in your clipboard, hit save. Oops, you can see there's a red error because we already have the PHP tag, so you don't need the second opening PHP tag. You delete that, save it. And now if you just go visit your home page, cool, we see added columns, is favorite, and is archived. And if I go refresh my critters table, scroll over to the right, perfect. We have is favorite and is archived. Now immediately you would want to delete that code from index.php. So you can just press Command or Control Z to undo. Perfect. Good as new. You can save that. And then it looks like I'm logged out. So let me go ahead and get logged back in. Let's get logged back in really quick. Cool. Now that we have those columns in our database, it's going to be so easy. So now just click on one of your individual critters. It's going to be so easy to add buttons that let you favorite or archive this particular critter that you're viewing. So let's do this. Write this prompt in with me. Let's say in single critter.php, below the critter image and the sentence description of the critter, add buttons of, let's say, quotes, favorite, end quotes, and quotes, archive. The buttons can be wrapped in a form element so that when a user clicks on a button, it submits the appropriate form to this same single critter.php page. But when the user clicks on favorite, it should change the current critter row in the database so that its is favorite column has a value of 1. If a critter already has a value of 1 for is favorite, toggle its value to 0 and have the button say unfavorite. Similarly, for the archive button, have it toggle the is archived column value between 0 and 1 and have it say unarchive if it is already archived. Use Tailwind to make the buttons and forms sit side by side on a row and have the buttons look nice. And finally, make sure that only the author of a critter, and let's give the AI as much information. So in the critter, there's the author ID column. So I'll even say author underscore ID column. Make sure that only the author of a critter can modify these values or submit these forms. So compare the logged in session user with the author ID for a critter. Okay, let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. Okay, it looks like my agent finished. Let's go refresh this individual critter page and test it out. Right away, I'm noticing where is the archive button? That's very interesting. But let's test out the favorite button at least. So let me try to favorite the monkey. Okay, interesting. Now all of the buttons are gone. Let me look at my database to get a feel for what's going on. So it did work. The monkey row now has a 1 for is favorite, but clearly this is not working. So let's describe to my agent what's going on. I tried to favorite a critter, and it did indeed change its is favorite value in the table correctly. However, now that the critter is favorited, neither the favorite or archive buttons are displaying. Also, the archive button never displayed at all in the first place. Please double check your code for problems or issues that is preventing the buttons from displaying when you would expect them to. Okay, let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Okay, it looks like my agent finished. It gave me a long explanation of what it did and what it found, but let's just test it out. So if I refresh the monkey individual page, still not seeing any of the buttons. Oh, maybe there was a weird caching issue. Maybe there wasn't a problem even in the first place. I think I know exactly what happened. I think the new buttons, and you might run into this same problem, these new elements were using updated Tailwind styling, but our browser had cached the CSS file. So to fix this, if you're running into a similar problem, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard while you click the reload or refresh icon. That'll force your browser to re-download the newest CSS. And there you can see, right, it created new styling for like a gray favorite and an orange archive button. So let me test this out. Let me click on unfavorite. And let me go refresh the database. This 1 should become a 0 now when I refresh. Perfect. Let me try archiving the monkey. Okay, and if I check the database and refresh, perfect. The monkey now has a 1 for is archived. Let me try to unarchive the monkey and go check the database. So refresh. Perfect. The monkey is not favorited or archived. So things are working exactly like we would expect. And yes, if you're seeing styling related issues, where you told the agent to style something or design something and you're not seeing any of that, always try to hold down the Shift key and force a clean or full refresh. At this point, now that we're successfully toggling these database values of is favorite or is archive, we've perfectly set ourselves up for the next lesson where we can actually have those values do something. So in our next lesson, we're going to add favorites and archive links down here in the footer. And then also on our homepage, we'll add filtering ability. So that you can say like only show me monkeys or only show me teddy bears. And we can also set things up so that by default, your homepage doesn't show archived critters. I think the next lesson should be a lot of fun. Let's keep things rolling and I'll see you then. Hello everyone. In this lesson, we're going to pick up right where we left off. So in our previous lesson, we added the favorite and archive buttons on an individual critter screen. In this lesson, I want to make those values in the database, right? Is favorite and is archived, 0 for false or 1 for true. I want to make those values actually do something. So here's what I want to do first. Before we worry about favoriting and archiving, I want to first, back on the home page, below where it shows all of your critters, I want to have a few filters down here where users can click on different form field drop downs and say like only show me monkeys or only show me critters that are playing with blocks or flying a kite. And then yes, one of the ways you can also filter could be like only show me favorited critters or archived critters. So do this with me. Let's write a prompt and let's say in index.php below the list of critters for a user, add a new filter area that is a form users can submit to filter which critters appear at this same page. Have a select drop-down form field for adjective, one for noun, one for verb, and one for location. Oops, let me get rid of the word and. Let's say comma, one for location and one for status. For adjective, noun, verb, and location, you'll populate the select elements with the contents of the adjectives, nouns, verbs, and locations tables in our database. For the status select element, the user can choose between any, favorited, and archived. When the user submits the form, make sure that it uses typical URL parameters so that a user could bookmark a result. Use Tailwind to make the filter form look nice. Be sure to sanitize any user input and follow security best practices. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. Okay, looks like my agent finished. Let's go refresh the home page. Whoops, you see the styling didn't take effect until I held Shift on my keyboard and then clicked the refresh icon. Also, just to jog your memory, back in VS Code in your terminal, that's Controller Command J, you need to have your npm run dev task up and running in the background so that you'll see the new styles. But right away, I think this looks really nice, but didn't I tell it to be below the images? We can fix that later on. Let's give it a test. So let's say, like for noun, let me set it to just monkey and then click the filter button. It worked. Or like if I set it to just teddy bear, it worked. Or if I set noun to any, but for verb, I put it to builds with blocks. Awesome. You get the idea. Now let's really test this out. Let me go back and click on the monkey. Let me favorite the monkey. And now if I go back to the home page, and for status, if I say only show me favorited, click filter, awesome. Or if I go back to the home page and click on the teddy bear and click archive on the teddy bear, and then say only show me archived, and you do have to click filter, perfect. Let's take it a step further though. Let's say that your home page by default should not show archived critters. Right, that's the entire point of archiving them in the first place, is so that they don't show up by default in your list. So let's do a few things. I'll say perfect, but have this filter area be below the images, and also modify index.php so that critters that are archived and is archived value of 1 are not shown. We'll say by default. Let's go ahead and run that and see what it gives us. Looks like it finished. So if I refresh my home page, cool, now we have the images first and then the filter, and also perfect, it's not showing the archived teddy bear by default. However, if I say status archived and click filter, beautiful. Now that we have this running, it's very easy. Why don't we add links in our footer so that from anywhere on the website, even if they're on Create Critter or a single critter view, they're just one click away from saying, like, you know, my favorite critters or my archived critters. So here's what I would do to make that happen. I would just write a prompt and say, in our lib/footer.php file, in the footer but above the copyright line of text, have links to favorites and archived critters, and have them link to the home page with the appropriate URL parameters that our homepage filtering feature uses and that you just set up. Okay, let's press enter and see what that gives us. It looks like it finished. Let's go refresh the homepage. Cool, down in our footer we see favorites. I can click on that. We see just the monkey. I can click on archived critters. Perfect. Off camera, why don't you go create a couple more critters, and I will too, just so we have a bit more to work with, so it's more obvious if these features are working or not. Okay, so off camera I just added these 3 new critters, and now it's really obvious. When I click on favorites in my footer, only my favorite critters are showing. I can click on archived. You get the idea. And this teddy bear is no longer showing up in the default view because it's archived. That's going to wrap it up for this lesson. In our next lesson, I want to add a new button here called Remix. And when you click on it, I want it to take you to the Create Critter screen, but with the values for that critter pre-populated and pre-selected. So that way, if you want to create a duplicate, or if you want to just change one of the 4 values, it's really quick and really easy. Let's keep our momentum rolling, and I'll see you then. Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to set up our Remix feature. So when you click on a single or individual critter, currently we have the ability to favorite or archive the critter. Let's add a new button that says Remix, and when you click on it, I want it to take you to the Create Critter screen, but with all of the values for that critter that you're remixing already selected and pre-populated, so that way a user could easily duplicate a critter or change maybe just a quick value and create a new one. So here's what I would do to make that happen. Let's write a new prompt, and I'll just say, in single critter.php, we already have favorite and archive buttons and forms. Add a new button and form that sits to the right of the archive button that says Remix. When a user clicks on this Remix button or link, have it take the user to create critter.php, but all of the adjective, noun, verb, and location values from the critter they just clicked Remix on should be pre-selected for the user. You can handle this by adding URL parameters at the end of the create critter PHP link that the Remix link points towards. Be sure to sanitize any user input and follow security best practices. Let's go ahead and press enter. I'm not even going to worry about the styling. Let's just see what the agent does in terms of the color for the button. Looks like my agent finished, so if I visit the individual screen for this critter, be sure to hold shift on your keyboard and click the reload icon to make sure you're using the newest CSS available. But perfect, there we see a green well, yours might not be green, it probably won't be green. That's the random nature of AI, but there we see a Remix button. And if I click it, I'm hoping to see a form where it's the crochet hamster wears pajamas on a bridge. Absolutely perfect. Now I'm going to test this out by running this, and so it should be just the exact same thing. Very cool. I mean, each instance is different, but it's the same values. Let me try remixing that again and just change like one value. So instead of hamster, I'll say raccoon, but leave everything else the same. Click create critter, and we should see, yep, a crochet raccoon wearing pajamas on a bridge. Now that my Remix feature is up and running, I think the next thing I would want to do is if you go to the Create Critter screen, if there is no Remix URL parameters being added to this, I think it would be nice if it automatically chose you random values. Like each time you refresh, you get a new random filling of this form. So that's easy enough. Let's just say in create critter.php, if there are no incoming URL parameters like there would be during a remix, then go ahead and select random values for the user for the adjective, noun, verb, and location select fields. This way, each time the user refreshes or visits this screen, assuming it's not a remix, they have a random critter idea shown to them. Okay, let's go ahead and press enter and see how that works. Okay, my agent finished. Let's test that out. So I'll go to the home page, I'll click create critter. We see the brown elephant plays golf on a soccer field, but if I click refresh, we see the stone squirrel. Awesome, so it's working. Now let's make sure, let's try to actually create this critter. So it should be the stone squirrel bakes cookies up in a hot air balloon. Okay, so that worked. Now let's try the remix feature and make sure that it still works, that the random feature didn't break it. So I'll take what, maybe, I'll take the sparkly turtle bakes cookies inside an igloo. Let me try to remix that one, and I'll just create a clone. So I won't even change anything. There we have it. I don't know why, but I like that one. Up next, let's make sure that you can't view a critter on the single critter page unless you are the author of that critter. Because for example, if I pull up this URL in a different browser where I'm not logged in, so off camera I just opened it up in Firefox, here it is in Firefox, I should not be able to see this single critter screen, right? Only the logged in author should be able to view it. So that's simple to fix. Let's just write a new prompt. Let me keep those existing changes, and I'll say in single critter.php, adjust it so that only if a user is logged in and their user ID matches the author ID of the critter in question, only then should they be able to see the page or perform any of the actions. Otherwise, they should immediately be redirected to the home page, which is just, I'll give an example of just, /. Let's go ahead and press enter and see what that gives us. Looks like it finished. So if I go back to the browser, this should still work. I'm logged in as the Brad user. So if I refresh, still looks good. However, in this window, I'm not logged in. So when I refresh, it should kick me back to the home page. Perfect. And while we're at it, let's make sure that that didn't break any of our features. Like where I am logged in as Brad, let's make sure that I can favorite this critter. So now if I click on favorites, cool, there it is. Let me unfavorite it and instead archive it and make sure that it doesn't show up on the home page. Perfect, it doesn't. Let me click on archived, let me unarchive it, let me remix it and change it to a turtle that flies a kite on a sunny island. Create critter. I do not like that one at all. This image is nightmare fuel, and the entire reason that I built in the archive feature. Get that out of my home page. Perfect. So everything's still working. Now one more detail. Back to the screen where I'm not logged in, this screen. If you're not logged in, it doesn't make any sense to show favorites and archived critters down in the footer. So let's fix that. Let's close these files so it doesn't try to automatically add context. I don't think it would mess up even if it did, because throughout the course I haven't bothered to close the files. That's why I always just manually say in the file that I'm interested in. But I'll say like in lib/footer.php. Only show the favorites and archived critters links if a user is logged in. Let's go ahead and press enter, let that run. Looks like it finished. Let me refresh where I am logged in. Cool, we still see those links in the footer, but back in this window I'm not logged in, and if I refresh, beautiful, they're gone in the footer. That's going to do it for this lesson. In our next lesson, we're starting a new effort, and that is the concept of credits. Because we're not running a charity with this application, it costs us, a fraction of a cent to create each one of these images. So we can't just let the public create images for free or create as many images as they want. We need to have our users have to buy credits. And so they need to give us money through a payment system, and then we can give them a certain number of credits, and then it will use a credit each time they create an image. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to implement this sort of real-world feature into our app. Let's keep our momentum rolling, and I'll see you then.